My wife didn't come home last night. No argument. No dramatic goodbye. No slammed doors. Just a text at 6:47 p.m. that said, "Running late. Don't wait up." I waited anyway. At first, I didn't panic. I told myself all the reasonable lies people tell when they don't want to imagine the worst. Maybe her phone died. Maybe she crashed at a friend's place. Maybe traffic was bad. We'd been married 9 years. You don't jump to betrayal after 9 years. You jump to denial. Midnight came and went. I sat on the couch, the TV on mute, the house humming with that strange nighttime silence that makes every thought louder. I checked my phone again. No messages. No missed calls. I texted her, "Everything okay?" No response. By 2 a.m., denial began to rot into something darker. I stood by the window, watching headlights pass like strangers who had somewhere to be, while I stayed trapped inside a question I didn't want answered. I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. That's when my chest tightened, not with fear yet, but with the sense that something fundamental had shifted. She finally texted at 4:12 a.m., "I'm safe." Talk in the morning? No explanation. No apology. Just that. I didn't sleep after that. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet side of the mattress where she should have been, replaying every strange moment from the past few months. The late nights. The sudden privacy with her phone. The way she'd started showering the moment she got home. I had noticed it all, but I'd filed it away under stress, work, life. It was easier than asking questions that might end everything. She came home around 8 a.m. I heard the door before I saw her. I stayed in the bedroom, pretending to still be asleep. Not because I was scared, because I needed to see who walked through that door before I spoke to her. She moved quietly, too quietly. No usual clatter of keys. No calling my name. When she stepped into the bedroom, I opened my eyes. She froze. For half a second, something crossed her face. Panic, maybe guilt, maybe relief. It vanished quickly. "You're awake," she said. "Didn't sleep," I replied. She nodded like she'd expected that. Sat on the edge of the bed, keeping just enough distance between us to feel deliberate. Her clothes were wrinkled. Not slept in wrinkled, removed and put back unwrinkled. I noticed the small details because once trust cracks, your brain turns into a detective whether you want it to or not. "So?" I asked. She sighed. "I stayed at Melissa's." It was the fastest lie I'd ever heard her tell. Too smooth. Too immediate. Like she'd rehearsed it. I didn't call her out. I just watched her hands. They were shaking. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I texted you. You told me you were safe. Not where you were." She looked away. "I didn't want to wake you. That was when I knew. Not suspected. Knew. You don't protect someone's sleep by disappearing all night. You protect your lie. I went to work that day in a fog. I answered emails. I sat through meetings. I nodded at jokes. All while something heavy pressed against my ribs like it was trying to claw its way out. Around noon, my phone buzzed. A message from her. "We should talk tonight." Those 4 words felt heavier than any accusation. When someone asks to talk after doing something wrong, it's never to tell you good news. She didn't come straight home that evening either. She arrived just after dinner time, carrying takeout like an offering. We sat at the table across from each other, the food untouched, the air thick. "I need to tell you something," she said. I nodded. Okay. She took a breath. Last night. I didn't stay at Melissa's. There it was. The truth, finally stepping into the room like an unwelcome guest. I met someone from work for drinks, she continued. It got late. We talked. I drank too much. I didn't feel safe driving. And I stayed at a hotel. The story was careful. Every word chosen to sound responsible, innocent. No mention of a second toothbrush. No mention of shared beds. Just enough honesty to feel like progress, not enough to be real. Did you sleep with him? I asked. She hesitated. That hesitation rewrote 9 years of my life in a single second. No, she said finally. I didn't respond. I stood up, walked to the sink, and stared at my reflection. The man looking back at me looked older than he had yesterday. Betrayal does that. It ages you instantly. That night, she fell asleep quickly. I didn't. Around 3 a.m., her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Just once. She didn't wake up. I stared at it like it was a ticking bomb. I told myself I wouldn't look. I told myself trust meant restraint. I told myself this was a line you don't cross. Then the screen lit up again. I wished last night didn't have to end. That was it. That was the moment. The line didn't just get crossed, it evaporated. I picked up her phone. My hands were steady in a way that scared me. There was no passcode. She'd never needed one before. The messages were all there. Weeks. Maybe months. Late-night jokes. Compliments. Confessions. A slow emotional undressing that had nothing accidental about it. And then I found the photo. Her. In a hotel mirror. My wife. Smiling in a way she hadn't smiled at me in a long time. I put the phone back exactly where it had been. I lay down beside her, listening to her breathe, and realized something terrifying. The woman sleeping next to me wasn't the person I thought I married. And the worst part? This wasn't the beginning of the betrayal. It was just the part I'd finally discovered. I didn't confront her the next morning. Not because I was scared, but because something in me wanted to see how far she'd go to protect her version of reality. Betrayal isn't just about what someone does behind your back. It's about how convincingly they look you in the eyes afterward and pretend nothing happened. I needed to witness that. She woke up cheerful. Too cheerful. She kissed my cheek, asked if I wanted coffee, talked about errands like the house hadn't nearly collapsed the night before. I nodded, responded automatically, playing my role while my mind replayed the messages over and over. I noticed the smallest things now. The way she avoided my eyes when her phone buzzed. The way she angled the screen away from me. The way her smile tightened when I stayed silent too long. At work, I couldn't focus. Every task felt meaningless compared to the slow-motion disaster unfolding at home. Around noon, curiosity pushed past restraint. I checked our shared phone plan. It wasn't something I'd ever done before. Trust had made that unnecessary. The call logs loaded slowly, and when they did, my stomach dropped. One number appeared constantly. Late nights. Early mornings. Long conversations that didn't match the story she told me. I copied the number into my contacts and stared at it for a long time before doing something I never thought I'd do. I called it. It rang twice. Hello? A man's voice. Calm. Unbothered. I hung up without saying a word. My hands were shaking now. Not with anger, recognition. I knew that voice. I'd heard it before. At our house. Laughing at our dinner table months ago. A coworker she'd introduced as just a friend. That realization was worse than discovering a stranger. This wasn't a faceless affair. This was someone who had shaken my hand, eaten my food, smiled at my wife while sitting across from me. Someone who knew exactly who I was and did it anyway. That evening, she came home late again. Not as late as the first night, but late enough to test boundaries. I asked casually, "How was work?" "Busy," she said. "With him?" She froze. Just for a fraction of a second. "Enough. Who?" she asked. I smiled. Not warmly. Not cruelly. Just knowingly. "The one you've been talking to every night." The color drained from her face. "You went through my phone?" "No," I said. "You left the door open." "I just walked through it." She sat down slowly, like her legs had given out. "It's not what you think." I laughed. I couldn't help it. The sound startled even me. That line should be retired. "It's never true," she cried. Again. Apologies poured out in messy fragments. She admitted to emotional cheating. Claimed it never got physical. Swore the hotel night was just a mistake. I listened quietly, letting her talk herself into corners. When she finished, I asked one question: "Why him?" She hesitated, searching for a safe answer. "He listens," she said finally. That hurt more than any confession. Because listening was something I'd always done. I just hadn't realized she'd stopped talking to me. That night, I slept in the guest room. Not to punish her, but to breathe. The distance felt necessary, like a tourniquet slowing emotional bleeding. Sometime after midnight, I heard her crying through the wall. I didn't go to her. Comfort felt dishonest now. The next few days were surreal. She tried harder than she ever had before, cooking, cleaning, touching my arm gently as she passed. It felt like watching someone try to rebuild a house while ignoring the fire still burning inside it. She said she cut contact. She said she wanted us. She said she'd do anything. Then something happened that shifted everything. I received an email. From an address I didn't recognize. No subject line. Just one sentence: "You deserve to know the truth. She hasn't told you everything." Attached was a photo. When she came home that evening, I didn't say a word. I handed her my phone with the email open. She read it. Her knees buckled. She sat down hard on the couch, covering her face. "He told you?" she whispered. "No," I said. "He warned me." That was when the real story came out. Not the sanitized version. Not the partial confession. The full truth spilled out between sobs. The hotel night wasn't the first. There had been others. The affair wasn't a slip, it was a relationship. Plans, fantasies, conversations about a future that didn't include me. And the email? I asked. She swallowed. "He found out I wasn't going to leave you. He got angry." That was the twist I hadn't expected. The affair wasn't ending because she chose me. It was ending because she chose safety. Stability. The life she already had. And suddenly, I wasn't just betrayed, I was the backup plan. She begged again. Promised again. Swore again. But her words had lost weight. They fell flat, unable to carry meaning. Later that night, another message came through. From him. This time directly to my phone. "Ask her about the pregnancy." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Pregnancy? We hadn't talked about that. She hadn't mentioned anything. I walked into the bedroom where she was lying silently on the bed, eyes red, face empty. What pregnancy? I asked. Her breath caught, and in that moment, I knew, whatever this story was, it was about to get much worse. She didn't answer right away. She just lay there, staring at the ceiling like it might open up and swallow her whole. That silence was louder than any confession. I felt my pulse in my ears, slow and heavy, like my body already knew what my mind was still trying to reject. What pregnancy? I repeated, slower this time. Her lips parted, then closed again. She turned onto her side, facing away from me, curling in on herself like a child caught doing something unforgivable. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't gossip or manipulation from a jealous lover. This was real. Whatever it was, it had been living inside her for a while. I was going to tell you, she whispered. Those words didn't calm me. They never do. I was going to tell you is what people say when the truth escapes before they're ready. When? I asked. She swallowed hard. After I figured things out. I laughed quietly, not because it was funny, but because my brain couldn't find another response that made sense. You were pregnant, I said slowly, tasting the words, and you thought the responsible thing was to figure things out first? Tears rolled down her face. I didn't know who the father was. The room went still. Completely, unnaturally still. Like the air itself had frozen. My legs felt weak, and I had to lean against the doorframe to stay upright. In all the scenarios I'd imagined, rage, infidelity, emotional abandonment, this hadn't been one of them. How long? I asked. About 7 weeks. 7 weeks. That meant the timeline overlapped perfectly with the hotel nights, the late dinners, the sudden distance between us. Every puzzle piece slammed into place so violently it almost knocked the breath out of me. And now? She hesitated. Again. Always hesitation before the truth. I lost it. Lost it. The words were clinical, detached, like she was reading them off a pamphlet. I didn't know what I felt in that moment. Relief. Horror, grief, all tangled together. A child that might have been mine. Or his. Or neither. A future that had existed in uncertainty erased before it could demand answers. When? 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. That was when she'd come home pale, claiming she felt sick. When she'd locked herself in the bathroom for hours. When she told me she just needed rest. I slid down onto the edge of the bed, my head spinning. Did he know? Yes. And? He wanted me to keep it. That sentence changed everything. It rewrote the affair into something far more dangerous. This wasn't just secrecy. This was a fork in the road where she'd considered an entirely different life. One where I wasn't just betrayed, I was erased. I didn't, she added quickly. I couldn't. I didn't want to lose you. I looked at her then. Really looked. And for the first time since all of this started, I didn't see my wife. I saw someone capable of compartmentalizing unimaginable things. Someone who could weigh futures like options on a shelf. Someone who could carry a child whose father she wasn't sure about. And still come home and kiss me goodnight. You were pregnant, I said. My voice hollow. And every night you looked at me, knowing there was a chance it wasn't mine. She sobbed. I was scared. So was I said. I just didn't know it yet. The next few days blurred together. I moved through them on autopilot, functioning but disconnected. At work, I stared at my screen without reading a word. At home, I barely spoke. She tried, God, she tried. Therapy suggestions, promises, plans, declarations of love that came too late to matter, but something else was happening beneath the surface. I started receiving more messages. From him. Not threats. Not insults. Confessions. Screenshots. Voice notes. Proof that what she told me still wasn't the full story. He said she'd talked about leaving. That she'd said our marriage was already dead. That she told him she loved him more than she ever loved me. I didn't show her those messages. Not yet. I was beginning to understand something crucial. Closure doesn't come from confrontation alone. Sometimes it comes from letting the truth pile up until it becomes impossible to ignore. One night, as we sat in silence on opposite ends of the couch, she finally said it. Do you hate me? I considered the question carefully. No, I said. I don't trust you. And I don't recognize you. But hate would mean you still matter in the way you used to. She broke down completely then. But I felt strangely calm. Because somewhere along the way, my grief had turned into clarity. A week later, I made a decision. Not out of anger. Out of survival. I asked her to leave for a while. Just space, I said. Time to think. Time to breathe. She resisted at first, then saw it in my eyes, the finality. She packed a bag, crying quietly, and stood at the door like she was waiting for me to stop her. I didn't. After she left, I sat alone in the house we built together and realized something devastating and freeing at the same time. The night she didn't come home wasn't when my marriage ended. It was when I finally stopped being lied to.